All right, hello everyone and welcome back. We're broadcasting live from Your Natural Baby Fair 2013 here in San Diego, California. And I'm joined now by Dr. Bob Sears, a pediatrician and author of the vaccine book. Welcome.
Great. Thanks, John.
As well as our panelists as well. So let's go around, we'll introduce ourselves, and if you guys want to try and participate, we do have that comment box if anyone has questions, or Sunny's checking our Twitter account as well. So send us a tweet, hashtag YNBF2013. And let's go. First, we'll introduce. I'm 39. We have 3 boys. I think maybe a couple of you met them earlier today. 6, 4, and 1. And so we started with a little bit of untraditional vaccination. I think by the 3rd, we've gone more to the traditional route. So I'm interested to talk to you more about the topic today. Go ahead.
I'm Cinda, and I have an 18-month-old daughter, and we haven't vaccinated at all yet.
Oh wow.
I'm Ginny. I have a 9-month, and we also waited to vaccinate.
Okay.
Same here. I'm Cherry. I have a 10-month-old daughter, and she has not been vaccinated for anything yet.
So I'll be representing.
I'm
How old are your kids?
I have 3 boys, 20, 17, and 11.
Okay. Well, great. Well, I guess let's dive right in with. I know a lot of you are familiar with Dr. Sears' book, but from a top level, let's talk about the alternative schedule and what you recommend and what you're talking about in the vaccine book.
All right. Well, when I became a pediatrician 15 years ago, and I was presented with a vaccine schedule, put together by the Centers for Disease Control, it just didn't really feel comfortable to me, giving so many vaccines together. Giving 6 vaccines, to every 2-month-old and 4-month-old and 6-month-old baby, and I was faced with that decision with my own kids right at the same time. I had my first child 20 years ago in medical school, right? So I just did tons and tons of research, and I felt that although vaccines are important and I wanted to give them, I just couldn't bring myself to give them in such big groups all together. And in fact, I did end up doing that with my first child. I did group them all together.
Because that's what they were saying too.
Right, because I had just started my research. I was in medical school, but as I had more kids, as I did more and more research, I really felt it was important to spread them out. And so when I started practicing in my office, I just tried to reason through what would be the safest possible way to do these vaccines for my patients. And so that's why I just figured out a way to spread them out, do them more gradually, bit by bit, instead of grouping them all together. And
is the thinking behind them being grouped together to just get it over with or get it done as fast as possible?
Well, it's really so that it can be complete, so that we can get babies fully vaccinated.
Like as quickly as possible.
And it's not so much that it has to be as quickly as possible, but we do 4 or 5 checkups on babies during the first year.
Right.
We do a couple checkups during the second year, and so we only have that many opportunities to vaccinate. And so in order to get them all in during the first 2 years of life, you really have to group them all together during the checkup times.
Got it. But then you saw that, and now you've got your own ideas.
Yeah, I just felt like it was an overload doing it, so many together for these little babies. So I just felt I'd spread them out. My patients do have to come into the office more often. And they're not doing a checkup with me every time. Often they're just coming in to get the vaccine that's next on the schedule. But they do have to make the extra drives into the office, spend a lot more gas money and time doing this. But patients who feel that it's safer are very happy to do that.
And so are there specific vaccines that, what are the specific vaccines that you recommend finally starting on and when that should happen?
Some of the diseases we vaccinate against pose a risk to babies, and they can be very severe, when babies do catch these diseases. And so, of course, the diseases can also be mild. It varies from baby to baby. But I didn't want to delay any of the very potentially severe diseases or vaccines for those diseases for babies. So I like to vaccinate babies against meningitis and whooping cough and rotavirus, any of these diseases that could be very bad for young babies. I don't like to delay those shots.
Right.
So I'll focus on those ones first during the first 7 months of the baby's life in my office. But then there are some vaccines that are on the regular schedule that we're supposed to give right away to babies, in which those diseases pose no risk whatsoever to babies.
Right.
And so if I can take out those vaccines and delay them and give them later on during childhood, I think it makes perfect sense. That way I'm not overloading babies with unnecessary vaccines right away.
And so the benefits are really not, it's not the pain of the shot, it's what's being introduced to them and having them combat everything at the same time. Is that
giving so many vaccines, so many chemicals all together, and giving unnecessary vaccines to young babies, like hepatitis B vaccine.
Right.
You know, as long as a baby's not sexually active or sharing, his or her IV drug needles with other babies.
Promiscuous baby, you don't need to worry.
That's one of the ones we did delay that one because I couldn't wrap my head around why that was there. Why is that there? Is that, you obviously didn't make the schedule and you have the alternative, but is it again part of the thinking of just getting it all done with?
Well, it's getting all done with, but they initially developed the hepatitis B vaccine for high-risk people, IV drug users, people who are very sexually promiscuous with lots of people, and so they developed that vaccine. And I think it's a great idea. If you're going to be sexually active with very many people, it's probably a great vaccine to get. But they're finding none of the sexually active people and none of the IV drug users were coming in to get their vaccines. And so they basically had a vaccine without a market, without a population of people that would get it. So they then decided, well, we have this vaccine, we need to figure out how to get it to people. And so they thought, well, all the babies that are born to all these promiscuous people who catch hepatitis B, if their babies are born, their babies can get infected from the mother. So we need to start vaccinating all these new babies. However, it's politically incorrect to single out only babies born to hepatitis B positive moms, just to give those babies the vaccine. So they decided to give it to everybody.
And everyone.
And it really makes no sense if you understand where this came from.
Well, I want to hear your stories too about delaying vaccine. He's 18 months old. Do you have what's your sort of plan, or do you have what is the plan that you're going to do for vaccine?
Well, initially when we first had Lily, we were trying to figure out what we wanted to do. We actually read your book and the alternative vaccine schedule, and I started doing more and more research, and we just found for our family that given the risks of the vaccine versus the risk of not vaccinating, we were more leaning towards the side of not vaccinating because we felt for us that there was more risk associated with the vaccines. We exclusively breastfed. We still do. She eats solids now too, but we did a lot of things to try to boost her immunity, to eat healthy, eat organic, keep her out of areas that were going to be really areas where you would tend to get some diseases or illnesses and things like that. And it's just with our lifestyle and the way that we live, we just feel like it's a good decision for us not to do that.
At some point, though, the vaccine, you will introduce the vaccine?
Probably not.
Well, so is there, and I think you will know better than I, but in California, are there laws with the schools about vaccines, or is that not really a law and it's kind of optional?
There's two laws. There's one law that says vaccines are mandatory to attend school in California. There's also a law that says vaccines are optional to attend school in California. And so,
which one's enforced?
They're both enforced.
School exemption, and you can also have a religious exemption here.
And that's what your plan is going to be.
So ultimately, you don't have to vaccinate in California and about 28 other free states.
You don't have to. But other states you do.
It does depend where you live.
But there are states where you do.
Well, in all the states all over the country, 48 of them, you can either have a religious reason not to vaccinate or just a personal reason.
And that's all you have to say.
Right, that's all you have to say, personal or religious, in 48 states. In 2 states, West Virginia and Mississippi, you have to have a medical reason to not vaccinate or just hide your children very well.
But how about you? Do you guys have, do you think that you'll vaccinate or?
I I think that's yet to be determined. You know, I mentioned earlier, I've had vaccines. My husband's had vaccines.
Right.
I think it was, for us, it started with the Hep B, and the fact that we kind of questioned that left us doubt on everything, which maybe isn't the best way to look at it, but for us it was just, well, if we don't feel comfortable with this one, then what about some of the others? With that said, though, I am concerned about pertussis. I'm concerned about, you know, my child contracting something that I could have prevented. So, although at this point we haven't, it's not that we never will. I just think that we nothing's felt right yet.
Right.
To be honest, I think that one of the things that I read in everything, across everything I read, if you're unsure, wait. Just wait. I don't know when I would be sure. Because as a teacher, I have seen a lot of changes in children over the last 15 years. And, you know, I know there's neurological things that we're dealing with now. I don't know science. I'm not a doctor, so I don't know what's causing that. But
I know 7 years ago when we went through it the first time, the autism link is what was given us as the primary reason not to do vaccines. And then that research has sort of been debunked, but now there's even more compelling reason. Like, that's not even what we're talking about, those. Right? I mean, I guess, are you saying that you're still a little concerned?
Yes.
Just because you don't know. We don't know.
I don't trust the research. I don't, and that may sound ignorant. That may sound, you know, but the truth is, it's just.
I don't think it sounds ignorant.
Yeah, there's just a lot that I don't trust, and because I don't trust it, I'm waiting. So far, our baby is extremely healthy. He's, you know, a 27-pound, 9-month-old. He was, wow, absolutely.
He's adorable. I met him
wonderful.
earlier.
He's right there.
There he is. Baby Dan.
He is, and so. Part of us feels like we don't want to make a decision that we regret. So far, we've been very blessed with what we consider a perfect child. We don't want to hurt him, but at the same time, we don't want him to get something and say, "Oh my gosh, we could have prevented this." So it is a dilemma.
Very similar to how I feel. You know, I got your book while I was pregnant, which was fantastic. I definitely recommend it, but it wasn't what I was looking for. I thought I was just going to open it up, and you were just going to tell me what to do. Where's the chapter where it just tells me, okay, this is just do this, and this is when you do it, and I realized that there was just I needed to do a lot more. I really needed to go beyond. I really needed to research so many different things. And you talk about not trusting research. I'm a researcher by profession, and I think there's so much research about everything, and people don't look at, well, who did the research and what was the sample, and has any research ever been conducted on unvaccinated kids? And there's just so many questions and so much research that I want to look at that doesn't exist, and I just felt like I was petrified to make a mistake and to regret my decision. And I felt like it's easier for me to go forward and take more time. And my daughter's now 10 months, and I still don't know what I'm going to do. And I know my pediatrician feels at my 12-month visit that we're going to revisit it, because that's what we discussed, you know, when I first said we want to wait. And it's probably going to be, well, we want to wait a little longer. And I don't know. You know, my hope, though, is that if we do eventually decide to do some vaccines, that I can do less, because there's so many vaccines that I think it was rotavirus that they said, well, if you're not going to do it right away or within a certain window, then you don't need to do that at all. I do want to travel with her, and I do want to take her all over the world, and we will visit a lot of third world countries, and so that's where I think some of my concerns
You want to prepare ahead.
But I also feel like,
do that too.
if I do that when she's 5 or when she's 10 and she has a much stronger immune system, because I think my biggest concern isn't just the vaccines, it's what's in the vaccines, it's the process of the vaccines, it's all the list of ingredients that no one ever talks about.
Just the fact that they're chemicals that you don't know what they are.
Preservatives
and
what's that?
concerning.
Animal parts and products
and even the side effects on the vaccine inserts that you know you don't see unless you really look for those, and then you read them and you realize no one ever warns you about this. Most people don't even know there's vaccine inserts that explain those side effects, and I think it's those kind of things that I feel somewhat have been hidden from me as a knowledgeable person who wants to be informed.
You have to seek the information out.
It's secretive, and even
Right.
then.
Well, yeah, you know, about 15 years ago, they used to show parents all the possible side effects. They had you read a piece of paper that listed all, you know, all the
can't put
negative
them
side
on
effects.
paper anymore.
Yeah, but then parents stopped vaccinating, and then the two words.
There's a small chance for this.
So they stopped showing those to parents, but they're actually getting back to doing that. Now doctors are supposed to give you a partial list, kind of a list of side effects that sounds a little friendlier, you know, a little less scary. Are you supposed to read through those at the doctor's office before you get vaccinated? Most doctors, I think, don't show those side effects.
Well, what I loved about
but
you-
they're supposed to.
What I loved about your book too was that you laid out the different manufacturers and what the different ingredients are. And I never knew that they were different manufacturers. I just thought the vaccine for ABC was the vaccine for ABC. I didn't know that different people made it. And when I asked my pediatrician, well, which brands do you use? He didn't know the answer to the question. He said he'd have to find out for me. But
I called ahead of time.
well, the cursory answer was, we use the good ones. We have the good ones. We don't use any of the bad ones. And then he told me they did have a bad one for some vaccine, but it was recalled. They don't use it anymore. And my initial reaction was, well, what about how many hundreds and thousands of your patients got that vaccine before that vaccine was recalled? And you have no way of telling me with any certainty that the vaccines you're using now aren't going to get recalled in 2 months or 2 years.
Did you receive any pushback at all from doctors, or have you heard of?
I did.
Yeah?
Absolutely.
And you still get it?
I changed care
You found a
providers.
care provider that's
Yeah,
kind of
yes.
which is.
I found a care provider who supports our decisions, which is great because it was very stressful to go. Honestly, for us, it became so stressful to go to her checkups that I was willing to not go to checkups.
Because you were going to feel the pressure.
Right.
Well, no,
She
checkups
was
are just for vaccines anyway.
She was perfectly healthy. Nothing was wrong with her, and we were going in to get basically interrogated, and I couldn't take it anymore. So
I mean, I do think that from a pediatrician perspective, with the American Academy of Pediatrics and family physicians, the pendulum has sort of shifted to, you know, with some measles outbreaks that have happened recently, or, you know, with the dismissal of the research with the autism link, they're saying, look, we told you, vaccines are good, so let's just go ahead and do it. But you still, have you noticed that sort of even though you guys are standing up for not vaccinating and your book's about it, but the public perception is kind of swinging against you some more? Have you noticed that, or do you see it happening the other way?
No, I think more and more parents are choosing to not vaccinate now, more than before.
Just because there's so much more information's available to them.
Yeah, there's more information. There are far more vaccines now. We give about 54 shots to children from birth of 0 to age 18 years, and it used to only be 10 shots back in the 80s. And so I think, if anything, it's getting less. Fewer and fewer kids are being vaccinated. You don't know the exact percentages, but I think more and more parents are worried, and the government is not giving them the research that they want in order to help alleviate their fears.
Well, so then what about the danger of those things that we're being vaccinated against not being vaccinated against? What do you say then about the dangers of those reemerging, or about outbreaks?
So far, nothing is reemerging. There's been no increase in any diseases for many, many years. There have been temporary increases. We had a temporary increase in whooping cough, and then it decreased again. And that happens about every 4 or 5 years. We see whooping cough go up and then down. It is a little bit up, but there's no overall increase in it. Measles is decreased, chickenpox is decreased, meningitis is decreased. Everything's either steady or decreasing, or a temporary fluctuation in a rise. So we're okay right now. Right now, as it exists, the number of parents that are not vaccinating are not endangering the rest of the people who are vaccinating, and they're not creating any increases in diseases.
So if everybody did not vaccinate, do you think that those diseases might come back?
Oh, absolutely. If everyone stopped vaccinating, we'd be in a lot of trouble.
Okay.
We'd see diseases return. So that's part of the argument. How much does the the public health's need to keep these diseases low, how much does that weigh into your decision?
Yeah.
I find very few parents have that weigh in on their decision. I think almost all parents make these decisions for their own children. They just want to decide what feels best, for me and my family and my child, and that's okay. I don't fault anyone for making a decision based on their child, but there is a public health issue there that we have to recognize.
I think part of our family's decision was also with the mindset that. Number one, it didn't feel right for us, and like I discussed earlier. But there's also kind of a sense of nothing changes if everybody just keeps following blindly. And so, in order to either get cleaner vaccines or really relook at the schedule again, I mean, varicella. Why do we need a
That didn't exist when we were kids.
Chickenpox for me. I remember my mother being so happy that my cousin had chickenpox. My brother and I went there. We got it.
Yeah,
she could take off
a little pox party. Everyone.
I have had a great immune system my whole life, and so because of those types of things, there's a part of us that feel like, from my husband and our family, that in order to have change for the better, whether it's a decrease in the schedule, cleaner vaccines. That it takes, unfortunately, people just not doing any of it to maybe have things change. In your book you talk about single-dose versions of shots that now are in a combo could I give my child just a pertussis shot? Maybe I would if it didn't have some of the preservatives. Maybe
it's hard to find or it doesn't exist.
And so maybe there will be some change positively because some of us are delaying and waiting. Unfortunately, I think money drives everything. So if there's
if the CDC and the pharmaceutical companies want to get us those vaccines that badly, maybe they'll make more single dose shots for us to be able to do that.
I don't know. I mean, I don't want it to be at the expense of my child's health at all. So I hope that isn't the case. But at the same time, I do feel like it takes people going to one extreme to get things to move in the correct direction.
So do you see a lot of positive feedback, or kids that are now? How long's the book been out?
2007.
2007. So, kids now that are in school, do you have parents come up to you, when you get talked to parents like this about some success stories, thank you so much for writing this book?
Yeah, a lot of people thank me for helping, make the decision more clear to them or not clear to them.
Why did you give me the answer?
Just raising questions. I think a lot of parents are happy just to have more information and make a more educated decision instead of being left in the dark. Yeah. And I think the book helps parents understand, all the pros and cons of vaccines, and so that they can, know what they're doing if they do vaccinate, and know what risks they're taking if they don't vaccinate.
It was very helpful, especially being able to read something, when you read about the side effects of the vaccine and then compare it to the side effects of the disease, sometimes they're the same.
Right.
And so then or not the same, but similar, and so you can say, well, you know what, there's a guaranteed chance of one thing, but maybe we'll never be exposed to that virus and, never have to deal with that side effect, and you can it was really helpful to be able to weigh that stuff out. So thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, that's great. Would you guys have any other questions for Dr. Sears?
Here we are.
I have another idea for another book for you. Because I think the book is great about vaccines. If you could write a book to deal with pesky in-laws and obnoxious co-workers who think that would be a great additional chapter how to deal with all those people.
It's just not worth the emotional energy to even try to deal with them.
That's why I don't tell most people.
Just smile and nod your head, or just agree to disagree.
Is there anything else you want to add?
How long do we have?
I think we have about 3 more minutes.
Something that the situation you three are in. We all have younger kids, not vaccinated, and you're not sure what do you do as the kids get older. I'll tell you, a lot of my patients are in the same boat, where they don't want to vaccinate the young babies, but they ask me, what do I do, once my baby's older and going to school, around a lot of other kids. Your child's older, so you feel safer about vaccines because your baby's no longer young and developing. The nervous system's more fully developed, and you might feel vaccines a little safer, for your 2, 3, or 5-year-old child. My perspective on that is the diseases are most dangerous to little babies. We rarely see fatalities or serious disease in older children. 2 years, 3 years, and up. It's fatalities do occur, but it's extremely rare. And so when I have unvaccinated 2-year-olds in my office and the patients say, what do I do now? Should I do some vaccines? We talk about it, but I sort of say, well, now your baby's kind of beyond the risky age where your baby could, die from these diseases. Now your child might catch a disease, but is probably going to survive and do okay. So the need for the vaccines goes way down the older you get.
Good to know.
The safety may go up. So it's kind of an interesting situation. So I often find families in your situation just end up not vaccinating because you realize your child is safer now that they're older, and you feel less of a need to vaccinate.
You'll have to bring us all back in 5 years and
See where we're at.
Although there are some vaccines you can do as they get older, but that's sort of what the book addresses, that certainly how to make these decisions with your older kids if they're not vaccinated.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you, everyone. I know that it's a very fascinating topic and one that everyone feels really strongly about, and they should from an individual perspective. And so thank you for taking the time to join us. I know a lot of us have been excited, so thank you. Thanks everyone for watching. We've got, I'll just remind you, 50% off our club memberships where you can access all our archived episodes, where you can download our apps for Parent Savers, Preggy Pals, and the Boob Group. Get them all for free. Whenever a new podcast comes out, you can listen to it. With club membership, you get discounts and access to old episodes as well. So check that out. Use code YNBF2013 for 50% off. And thank you again so much for joining us.
Great. Thanks, John.
Thank you.